Tell me a little bit about your character, Gabriel, and like a little bit of his backstory.
I made my character like a loner type, but that wants to make friends, but constantly isn't quite understood. He's like me. I, as a child, didn't have many friends, but now I have, let's say, a bigger group, like I think 20 maybe. I like to make friends that I like actual friends. Not like, oh, we are friends and that's kind. No, I actually want to make a meaningful bond with someone which I can talk with.
Mm-hmm.
And I leaned in with my character like he didn't find anyone like that because everyone was like, oh, knowledge is the only thing meaningful, or people are just passing by.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, what would be a better idea than to have a friend that's constantly with you?
Right.
One that actually cannot leave you.
Yeah, which you may turned into your hexblade weapon, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and your patron.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about that.
I liked how in D&D the patron thing with warlocks is really flexible and it really depends only on the player and DM. So I went with that would make an excellent friend because the trope is the patron owns the warlock's soul, and they have a toxic, unhealthy relationship. And I wanted, let's say, have completely different, like the complete opposite.
Okay, so you have a more healthy relationship with your patron, and while he does, yeah, that's a good way to put it. And while he does technically, because of patrons, he would kind of own your soul, but then also he's a sentient knife or a sentient dagger, so you kind of own him at the same time. It's mutual ownership.
Basically own each other.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to do things. I like it. So his backstory, you mentioned he was an orphan, or he was adopted. How old was he when that happened, and does he remember his real parents at all?
No, he was just a baby, delivered at the steps.
Okay, he was just dropped off, huh?
Yes.
And so what? Go ahead.
He didn't have, like, anything other written on it than a name and a date of birth. That was the only thing left on him. So, well, technically he had something. I put him in a scholarship kind of place to make him a more intelligent type of character, because many characters in D&D are either like brute, great warriors, or like only wizards, like scholars. I wanted to make a bard that's charismatic but knowledgeable, so he has knowledge to use for his charisma, and the charisma to deliver the knowledge that someone will actually listen to.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting idea. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. So he was raised in an area that was very scholarly, but then you also mentioned he had traveled. He had gone somewhere else also? Is that still a part of his backstory?
I wanted him to actually go out for the first time, because he normally hanged out around the so-called university of that sorts, and he just collected knowledge of any kind that he could, because he kind of functions like me. The more knowledge you have, the more dots you can connect. And I made him with more intelligence because I can technically metagame, but not metagame at the same time. And I could use actually my brain to figure out things.
Yeah, okay. So you don't have to play dumb, even if it might not be the most perfect scenario. Okay. So at this scholarly place, did you have a mentor, or, I mean, you had your parents. Did you have both parents or just one? And did you have a mentor in the school?
So the school kind of functioned like teachers, but there's a headmaster. The headmaster, Eileen, adopted him.
Okay. What was the name again?
Eileen,
okay.
Eileen Silverstone.
Okay. Eileen Silverstone. All right. Interesting. So he was left on the steps. Aline Silverstone brought him in, adopted him, and he grew up among the schools. This kind of vaguely... Have you read the His Dark Materials books? Or seen the show?
I've heard of them, but I haven't seen them or read.
I don't know too much about it, but from my brief understanding of the HBO show, the main character grew up in a scholarly situation, similar to Gabriel. That's why I was like drawing that connection, where this little girl grew up in a college among a bunch of old, professors and stuff, and then she went out on her adventure. But she was much younger. Not really in elf years though, because you're only 20, and you're a half elf or a human or.
Yes, half elf.
Half elf. Okay.
So they technically live up to over 180 years, and
Yeah.
I circle around it like 200.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you're still pretty young. Really young.
Oh, yes.
For a half elf. All right.
And for a human.
And for a human. You're just in that young kind of age. What was the name of your dagger again?
Ace clubs.
Ace clubs, right. And he talks to you.
Yes.
What is his personality like? Or its personality? I don't know what it is.
He also wants to see the ones who cause unnecessary pain experience that unnecessary pain. He's more of like play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Okay.
He likes to cut the towers of evil and watch them crumble.
Okay. He
also
he's
knows that he's a dagger, and we need to be careful, because if we are too brave and too arrogant, we may end up dead, or like villains.
right.
So,
okay.
Everything needs balance.
Interesting. It seems this is a very well thought out character. Like you spent quite a bit of time.
I always spend unhealthy amounts of time constructing my characters.
All right. You came up with one of the more unique characters. I think everyone had a pretty interesting character this time around, but you decided to go. Tell me about your character and why you made the choices you did with her.
So Vashtai is a Kalashtar monk. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing the race name.
I don't think anyone knows the proper way to pronounce it.
So she is from a small village called Arkala, and she, which is a village mixed between Kalashtar and just regular humans. Mm-hmm. And her Kalashtar clan has been having it kind of rough for the last few 100,000 years, with not like striving, I guess, to be the best that they can be, not really like connecting with their dream selves through a specific trial that they go through. However, Vashtai manages to complete the trial and connect with her.
And she's the first one in a very long time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So she is essentially considered a prodigy within her clan. And once she connects with her dream self and, completes the trial, her family essentially sends her off on a mission to go find this mountain that was within the legends of their clan, and try to take it back, essentially, with dwarves that have taken over that mountain.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And within that mountain are the dream stones that they have once they have the opportunity to be with their dream selves and communicate with them. And if they don't have access to those stones, then they can't strive.
They lose that connection, right? They can't be their whole self without those stones. Okay.
Yeah, essentially.
All right. So you were sent on the task, and then did you accomplish that task? How has that gone so far?
So what I've come up with is that she's hasn't even found the mountain yet. She's still gathering information to try to find its location and find out more about the dwarves that live there.
But she did find somebody else on her travels, right?
Yes. So she, I guess you could say she's always been like intrigued by hand-to-hand combat, and but didn't know how to essentially like defend herself properly.
Okay.
But as she was on her journey finding information to find the mountain, she has met a master of the way of the hand, and was considered, and he saw potential in Vashtai, and took her in as an apprentice to train her in the way of the hand.
All right, so it's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi kind of scenario.
Yeah.
All right.
But once all that training was complete, then she essentially just moved on to her next destination, to her journey of finding the mountain.
Okay. Interesting. That's a pretty interesting backstory. Kalashtar, I also don't know how to pronounce it. I even looked on D&D Beyond hoping that they would have one of those little pronunciation recordings. They don't. So I don't think anyone knows how it's pronounced. They are an interesting race, right? They have their human side, or their body, and then they have kind of a dream spirit self. Mm-hmm. When I was doing some research, I discovered sometimes the Kalashtar don't know so much about their heritage or about their dream selves. Where does Vashtai's culture sit on that? Are they ones that tell the information and make sure everyone knows what they are really, or have they forgotten some of that connection to the dream spirits?
I would say that since they haven't connected in so long, that they probably like forgotten like some of their heritage. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I haven't thought too much detail going into that.
Okay. I think it would be interesting if it's one of those things where perhaps they've may have forgotten some things, but they still hold on to the trial, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so that's even if that's not really something that they remember necessarily, they're like, we've always done this trial, even if they don't know what the purpose is. That could be something really interesting. And I do like the idea that Vashtai has accomplished and beat the trial, completed it, right? So connecting with her dream spirit, have you thought much about what the dream spirit is like as a personality, I guess?
So when I was trying to think of a personality with Vashtai, I kind of was also trying to think of that at the same time, and the idea was just kind of like the dream self and Vashtai herself are one once they're connected. And for a while I could not think of a personality, but then I was playing through Persona 4 Golden, and I really fell in love with the character of Chie. She's one of your main party members in that game, and Chie is kind of more like energetic and loves kung fu movies. So I kind of took inspiration from Chie's like energy and also like a little bit of recklessness. And put it into Vashtai.
All right, very cool. Well. I think that's an interesting idea. Your concept kind of reminds me of Steven Universe. Have you seen that show? And
yes.
The gyms have their fusions where they are two, but they become one. And that's kind of how I see this dream self and Vashtai's physical self just becoming one personality and not having like multiple. Even though they're, combined at that point. That's a really interesting idea. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. in the adventure, because that could be fun. It could be terrifying. We'll see. In your opinion, in your mindset, does Vashtai know of any other Kalashtar in the world? And this is where you get to just be creative if you want. Or is her village the only people she knows of?
Her people are pretty much the only Kalashtar that she's essentially aware of, but hoping to maybe find some more along the way too, because they're in the way I've seen it too is like there's not a whole lot of them left as well.
Yeah.
Not really sure why that is, but as far as she's aware of, there's not too many Kalashtar left in the world.
Maybe those stones might have something to do with it.
Probably.
Because they went missing. You made an interesting character choice, I thought, which, as we go through the other players, everyone kind of made interesting choices. So, tell me about your character, like the race, the class, and a little bit of his backstory.
All right. Velsir is a tiefling paladin. He's not your typical tiefling. When you think of tieflings, usually probably most people I think of tricky, kind of mercurial characters. And he kind of plays it straight his whole life. He grew up with two very loving parents, so he doesn't have like that kind of a stereotypical tragic backstory that a lot of folks put on their characters. They run an apple orchard. He's an older gentleman, so his parents are obviously way older. He hasn't spoken with them in quite a while, but that's mostly to protect them on that front, because of things that have happened to him in his recent history. But he's been living as a hermit for about 10 years because of some pretty rough things that happened to him.
Yeah. Okay, so building out the backstory, we came to a point where I was like, name things, come up with stuff yourself, because we're building the world of Yyndaer. It's a team effort at this point. So I had you come up with a deity, I had you come up with some factions, 2 rival faction names at least, and then you built the rest of your backstory around this. I'm not sure how much of your backstory you want to share this point, or if you want to wait for some more of this backstory to come out in game. But why don't you share as much as you feel comfortable of Velsir's backstory and what got him to this point in his life?
Sure, yeah. Well, Velsir was kind of trying to find his place in the world when he was a young man, and he was given the opportunity to take over this apple orchard that his family owns, and he decided he didn't really want to go that route. He didn't feel that was right for him, and he also soon after, or maybe around the same time, felt a calling to become a priest in the Church of Namira, which is the deity I came up with, which is the goddess of the sun. She's the goddess of like light, hope, and virtue. So she sort of indirectly influenced him to join the church and become a priest. And soon after he became ordained a priest, he discovered his talents with combat and with defending the temple where he was operating, where he was working. It was offered an opportunity to become part of a clandestine organization that he's not sure exists anymore. He's still kind of, as far as, unless you've moved, I don't know where your timetable is on that, but he's kind of moved ahead on that. So he's not sure if they exist or if they do exist anymore, but he's kind of, that's where he was at that point in his history. They're called the Augury. They operate to gather knowledge on different cults that are working in opposition to Numenera and worship, cults that worship devils and demons and evil deities, things like that.
Yeah. But then in recent years, he's just kind of, you said he's been a hermit for the last 10 years.
Right.
And just kind of been doing his thing. What is his home life now like now?
But he's been living in a small hut that he built by a lake.
Near the town of Weldrake.
Weldrake
named it.
That's right. Yeah, he's like about a mile or so out of town near the lake in the forest. And just been living a very quiet, solitary life. Occasionally has happened once or twice, weary travelers and adventurers have come across his path, and he's helped them out, healed them up, and sent them on their way. So he's kind of, outward appearance, he looks like he should be a scary monster. He's a pretty sweet, helpful guy, so the townsfolk don't really pay him any mind. They kind of ignore him for the most part, or are friendly to him if they interact with him at all.
So in that day-to-day life, that sounds like, I think that sounds like a great time. Just being out in the woods, living, doing things. What does Velsir do, like, to pass his time out there?
Oh man, his routine is pretty mechanical. He's chopping wood, he's foraging, he's, gathering and filtering water from the lake. It's for 10 years, it's been just repeat. Gathering herbs to make, potions and healing salves and things like that in case he hurts himself or he comes across somebody who needs help. He's pretty skilled as far as that goes. He's, of course, with a hermit background, you get proficiency in herbalism kits. So
yeah.
He's proficient in that kind of thing, and also as a priest, he does have some latent healing abilities. And paladin, of course, has lay on hands, so he just
Interesting. Okay, so he just had a quiet life, doing his thing, living his cabin, doing his cabin life. He's been doing that for nearly a decade at this point, so it's been quite a while since his.
He's about 44 years old currently.
Okay, so most adventurers I always see are like, oh, I'm 22 or something, really young, but 44 he's probably lived his life a little bit. I would guess he's even maybe forgotten some things in the last 10 years in terms of adventuring, which is why he's only a level 5 at the start of this adventure.
Precisely.
Probably could be much more skilled, but it's been a while.
Plus, he hasn't really done much. He's just been worshiping, and even before the incident happened with him, he wasn't really going out and doing a lot of combat. He's not like a champion of Numenera. He didn't really see himself as that. He was more or less just a mid-level priest with some combat ability, defending his turf, defending his organization within the church. He was starting to get interested in adventuring out, but he hadn't really gone out there and done a lot until this event happened. This kind of wrecked everything for him.
Yeah. I guess having a comfortable life, like they always joke around, like why would an adventurer who's had a good upbringing want to leave all that behind to go adventuring? But, maybe traumatic experiences might be needed by anybody who's getting into that.
I think it just depends on how, like, as far as like religious people go, sometimes you feel a calling and you go out and you do what is needed of you, and that's where it goes from there. And then the tragedy starts to happen because now you're out in the middle of it.
Exactly.